Welcome, everyone. Good evening. My name is Margaret Angel, and I'm the head of Partnerships and Strategic Initiatives here at the Roux Institute. And I'm really happy to welcome you to the first event in our series called the Roux Institute Presents, Our People, Our Work, and Our Community. I want to let everybody know that the event is being recorded and say a special hello to everyone who's online, camera in the back. Thank you for joining us virtually. We want to make sure that all of our events are open to as many people as possible. So we wanted to have, as we take our masks off and open up our campus and get to be together again, we wanted to invite our community onto our campus, engage in serious conversations about the mission of the Roux Institute. And so in this series, we are going to highlight our research areas like computational medicine and ethical AI. We'll introduce you to our partners and our students and many aspects of the Roux Institute. And when we think about how we wanted to start this, right? We wanted to go back to the original animating force of the Roux Institute. And at the Roux Institute, we do graduate education, applied research, and entrepreneurship, all in service of being an engine of opportunity for Mainers who want to engage in the innovation economy and who want to have an impact on our communities through technology and advanced life sciences. And so when we think about that animating force of economic development and economic growth for the state, we thought, who better to kick off that than the chief executive of the state to talk about the future of where we're going. And so I want to introduce the governor and bring her on up. But before I do that, I also want to introduce Mary Ludden. And Mary Ludden is the Senior Vice Chancellor and Senior Vice Provost of Northeastern University. She leads our global campus network. So the campus is outside of Boston, like in Vancouver and Seattle and Charlotte and London. But maybe more importantly than that, Mary is a longtime resident of Wells. She has 3 sons who all went through the Wells-Ogunquit School District. 2 of her 3 sons live in the state of Maine. 1 went to the University of Maine. And she's really keen on getting the 3rd one back here. Also, importantly, she is a graduate of USM and got her MBA at Husson. And higher education is actually Mary's 2nd career. She spent 20 years working at Anthem in South Portland and started her career as an auditor across the state of Maine. And so I couldn't imagine a better person to have this conversation with the governor, and to many of you submitted your questions beforehand, so Mary's going to take those questions to the governor. So I couldn't imagine a better person to do it because she has an equal passion for both Northeastern and the state of Maine. So welcome, Mary, and I'll have you both come up here, and then you can introduce the governor.
Thank you, Margaret. Thank you, Margaret. That was lovely. And as I told the governor, my whole purpose is to get my 3rd son back to Maine today. So some of the questions may speak to that topic. I have the great privilege of introducing our governor, Janet Mills, the 75th governor of the state of Maine, elected in 2019, the first woman governor of the state of Maine. She also earned more votes than any governor in state history. I have a few statistics for you, which are favorites of mine. She was born and raised in Farmington, Maine, where she still lives today, which is a beautiful town. She's the granddaughter of a rustic. If you're not from here, you would not be able to say that word. The county. Potato farmers, and the daughter of a longtime high school English teacher and the U.S. Attorney for Maine. She graduated from Mount Blue, the Cougars, I believe, in Farmington, where my sons wrestled, the University of Massachusetts at Boston, and the University of Maine School of Law. Governor Mills first entered public service as an assistant attorney general, and she became the first woman to be elected as a DA in New England. I hope you're all sensing a number of firsts as themes with our governor. Prior to becoming governor, Governor Mills served twice as the Attorney General of Maine. the first and only woman to hold the position. And in September 2019, Governor Mills spoke to the United Nations General Assembly on climate change.
Cool, yeah.
Yeah, you'll have to tell us a little
It's
bit
fun.
what that
3
was
minutes
like.
3 minutes of fame.
I hate to tell you, but you've had a few more minutes since then. She was the first sitting Maine governor to address the General Assembly.
Yes.
So please join me in welcoming our governor to the Roux Institute at Northeastern
Thank you,
University.
Thank you.
Welcome. I'd like to start, if you don't mind, with one of
Oh,
your.
I was fine with the introduction. Let's leave it at that. This is motion
We can
to
go right to the
adjourn.
social hour. One of your first acts as governor was to create a new and exciting 10-year economic strategic plan for the state of Maine. The first of its kind, I might add, in 2 decades. At least two decades,
ever.
yes. Why was that important to you at the onset of your tenure, and why was that such a priority for your administration?
Well, great. I mean, when you're campaigning for office, you hear a lot of people complain about a lot of things. One of the perennial things people complain about when you're campaigning and otherwise is people are leaving Maine, young people are leaving, they're not coming back. And I thought, that's a good point. It's a valid point. What can we do? What objective criteria should we have for expanding and improving the economy of Maine? In recent decades, we've lost many of our pulp and paper manufacturing plants. Our economy is morphing, like it or not. We need to diversify. We know we need certain things, but I wanted to get a group of people together who knew something about these things and not just talk the political angle, but objectively, what can we do to buttress the Maine economy? So I called on Commissioner, where is she? Heather Johnson. There she is, over there. Heather Johnson, our brilliant Commissioner of Economic and Community Development. And she put together a team and went out and talked to about 1,300 people and put together this report, which did not go into just get filed in the library, go into the circular file. It is a report that we look at just about every day and everything we're doing, whether it's healthcare, federal funding, education, transportation. We look back at this report, excuse me, issued in December 2019, shortly before the pandemic. And this report, based on the expertise and opinions and information from over 1,300 people across Maine, came up with 3 basic recommendations. One, we've got to grow the talent force in Maine by about 75,000 people in the next 8 years now. We've got to grow the annual wages of Maine by at least 10%. By the way, we're there. And we've got to grow or increase, expand the value of what we sell per individual by a good 10% in the coming years. And we're getting there too, with the help of research and development that's going on in places like the Roux Institute, with the help of entrepreneurship that the Roux Institute and Northeastern are supporting. Well, then the pandemic came, and boom, we thought, well, can we still rely on that plan? And of course, we had to evolve and react, respond to an awful lot of crises in a short time and make some extraordinarily tough decisions. But the other thing I thought about at the early part of the pandemic was, okay, plan ahead, Mills, plan ahead for the future. We're not going to be stuck in this mode forever. So, and I talked with the then Boston Federal Reserve Bank president. What can we do to improve our economy to prepare for coming out of the pandemic? Because we've got a plan. And he said, well, first of all, you can't have a healthy economy without healthy people. So focus on keeping people healthy. And of course, that was our highest priority for almost 2 years. And before the vaccine came into effect, it was a huge priority, especially. So, but we also put together a group of about 40 real great people from across the state, experts, and Josh Broder, Thomas College President Lori LaChance. I said, get this group of people together remotely, as it were, and put their heads together and see what it's going to be looking like to come out of the pandemic. And they based their analysis on the 10-year plan. now 8 years really, and they came up with a report, that is called the Governor's Economic Recovery Committee. And that talks about what we needed, this is long before we got federal funds for economic recovery and whatnot. Talks about what we need to expand the human infrastructure and the physical infrastructure of the state of Maine to make us ready to expand our economy when the pandemic waned. So unlike almost any other state in the country, we had this ready. And then the federal funding came down the pike, the American Rescue Plan, and now the infrastructure plan, $900 million. And what do? Maine Jobs and Recovery Plan. We took these reports, formed them into legislation, said to the legislature almost a year ago, here's the plan, let's fund it with these funds. And we were like first in the nation to be ready to spend those federal funds on things like childcare, expanding childcare infrastructure, childcare slots, childcare educators' salaries, transportation needs for people who need to get back to work, housing, workforce housing in particular. And that's what we're doing right now, all based on going back to that 10-year plan, basically. So that's a long way to answer that question. But thank God we did that plan before the pandemic hit, not knowing that that was coming down the pike, but it's been like the Bible for everything we've done since then in economic development.
It really is a roadmap for our future, isn't it? As
It
you look
is.
forward and as you think about those different priorities you mentioned, were there any that surprised you, having grown up in Maine, that appeared as themes?
Well, as I say, we always talk about youth of Maine leaving and not coming back and not having enough jobs. Well, now we've got the jobs. And we got to get the youth to come back, and they are coming back. What has been surprising in a good way is that Maine is top of the nation and top of New England, one of the top states in the nation, for in-migration, net in-migration. Lord, we've been asking for this for years. People are coming here, they're coming back. And I think partly because I brag about us being the safest state in the country. You know, pandemic-wise, one of the highest vaccination rates, one of the lowest death rates, and lowest crime rate. We vie with Vermont, you know, okay, you got this one. But we have the lowest crime rate in the country, along with Vermont. And so people are seeing that it pays to be in a rural state, pays to be in a state where there are beautiful natural resources, 4 different seasons of the year, and where we are expanding broadband as we speak, so that people will be able to work remotely and work in all kinds of new and innovative jobs. So that was the surprising thing that, I mean, we hoped for that to happen. We weren't sure it would happen, but it is happening. So.
That's fantastic. I was telling Ben that I judge the immigration by how crowded Hannaford is getting these days.
Yes.
And the lines I have to wait in, but I view that as economic opportunity for the state of Maine. So
you can measure it on the house sales,
yes.
Housing sales and prices going up too. And you know, while we've lost some of the school population, public school population, by about 4% statewide, places like Greenville and Rangeley school systems are seeing new students come in. They're seeing an increase in student enrollment. So that's an interesting sign.
It's fantastic. Continuing along that theme of how many changes there have been in all of our lives due to the pandemic, on the positive side, what changes do you see as opportunities for the future of Maine?
What changes from the pandemic?
Yeah.
Well, you know, I got a letter from this one young woman was writing me during the pandemic. I've never met her. Every week she wrote to me. Every week and tell me how she's training a new dog, she's homeschooling the kids, she's helping with her husband's business, she's birthing a kid in the spring. Okay. But the last letter she wrote to me was, I think the pandemic is behind us. But I, for one, she said, I'm never going to forget the experiences and the lessons from the pandemic. I thought, wow, that's pretty good. What are the experiences? What are the lessons from the pandemic? We shouldn't forget it. We can't just put it behind us and pretend it didn't happen. We learned a lot about healthcare. We learned a lot about workforce. We learned a lot about connecting with other people in so many ways at so many different levels. And I think that's the big lesson, and the thing that we're doing better than ever before is connecting. whether it's fixing the cell phone coverage on 295 at mile 49.
It is the worst. It's the worst.
That dip in Richmond, I hate it.
It's better in Holton than it is there.
You're right. Although you're in the Canadian system. But you still can't really go from the state's largest city to the state's capital or back without losing a call at mile 45, whatever it is. But we're fixing that.
I feel like it's an action item for Heather, based on how you're looking at her.
She's on that road a lot.
Okay.
You know, broadband connectivity. I mean, the legislature pretty much unanimously went along with our Maine Connectivity Authority last summer. As we're coming through the pandemic, we said we've got to get internet connectivity out there. So that's we were probably going to do that anyway, but boy, that put the urgency into it.
Absolutely.
So-
I think many of us that have lived here for many years and many newcomers are excited about some of the themes that you've been talking around, growing a diverse, strong, and resilient workforce.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering how your economic plan and how you think about building that workforce and retaining them all aligns with some of the strategies that you have in place.
Sure. Wow. Well, we set the goal of 75,000 people added to the talent. We've seen about 15,000 people moving into the state, coming to the state, in migration for the first time in a long time, one of the highest in New England, one of the highest in the country. What are they doing here? Well, I tend to think some of them are going into green collar jobs, clean energy jobs. When you visit sites like one of the Revision solar installation sites or the heat pump installation folks, you see a lot of young people. I mean, young to me, okay, young anyway, youngish. And some from out of state, some from this state. My sense is that they're coming here to work in jobs where they find a lot of fulfillment, where they feel they're doing something about climate change, which is a huge thing, as we know. So that's going on. You know, I've been visiting businesses across the state. Now that I can do that, I'm out of the bubble, you know, like many of you. I visited places like Springworks in Lisbon, a young couple who he's a Bowdoin grad, and they are aquaponically, well, anyway, they're growing romaine lettuce and herbs and whatnot entirely under greenhouses. So the growing season isn't limited by the weather, as most of us experience. Going to a formed fiber plant, LaCase and Weston, who are headquartered here in Portland, who've been working with Roux, I believe, Ms. LaCase has, and developing compostable materials to replace styrofoam for coffee holders, food holders, and whatnot. Really amazing things, and seeing a lot of this good stuff happening. Heat pumps, we had a goal in our climate policy of having, installing more than 100,000 heat pumps in the next 5 or 6 years from now, and we did 28,000 last year during the pandemic in 1 year. So that stuff is happening, and it's going to lower the cost of energy for Maine people and improve their lives and safety. So
That's amazing. And I know recently you've talked about your plans for the community colleges, which are
Oh,
really
yeah,
the
I forgot to
backbone
mention
of
that.
Maine.
Where's Dave Dagler? Yeah, we just put together a plan recently. It's in the legislature now, and I really hope that they support it. Among other things, we're improving and expanding the Opportunity Maine tax credit. It'll be for people who come here or stay here or are here, who work here, who have college debt from whatever program you graduated, even if it isn't related to your job. And we will pay $2,500, there's Dave, $2,500 a year tax credit, which is a pretty good bonus. And we're also proposing to provide 2 years free tuition to community colleges across the state of Maine, particularly for those people who are most affected by the pandemic, people who newly graduate from high school and this year, next year, last year, et cetera. So we think that's a big bonus, and that'll get people certified and trained up to get into the workforce, people who lack the credentials that they need. And we're doing a lot of other things about returning money to the pockets of Maine people. We were blessed with a budget surplus, estimated surplus, And we were able to propose to give half that surplus back to the Maine people, including small businesses, including individuals, including families. $850 per individual who makes up to $75,000. So, and $150,000 for a couple. I think given the inflation that's affecting everybody's pocketbook right now, going to the gas pump or going to the grocery store, I feel like that's the best way to compensate Maine people, tax filers, as they see fit, whether it's groceries, whether it's gas, whether it's heating oil in their particular case. So that'll also get circulated into the economy. I can't have much effect on how long Russia maintains its war in Ukraine. I don't have a lot to say about worldwide inflation and supply chain issues caused in good part by the pandemic, but I can do what little I can do in Maine to help Maine people. So those kinds of things are in the works right now in the Maine legislature, hoping to help make the workforce more robust. We're also providing money to the community colleges and to the university system for research, and to the community colleges to stand up more nursing programs. We know the healthcare workforce is in real serious need. Although we've cut the estimated shortage in half, that's good sign. So looking at sector by sector, teachers, we need teachers, healthcare workers, innovators like yourselves.
I think that's fantastic. And how do you see, when you think about your long-term plan and your strategic plan, how do you see the role of higher ed, the private sector, and the public sector joining to help facilitate some of your key initiatives?
Wow. If you've been to the University of Maine Orono, you'll see a magnificent research and development facility where they have at least 30 patents just on floating offshore wind. And then they're doing a lot of research in nanocellulose technology. We know, and it's part of this plan, to diversify our aquaculture industry and diversify our heritage industries, agriculture and forestry. And a group called For Maine have been working on that for a number of years too. We're supporting groups like the company in Madison, Maine, which has invented and brought to the United States, first place ever in the United States, forest technology that allows wood fiber insulation to be manufactured here in Maine and marketed hopefully all around the country. That's pretty cool. Wood fiber insulation, who knew? We'd like to see more cross-laminated timber investment as well in Maine. A lot of things we can do with our forest-based economy that we haven't been doing up till now. That's an example of what's going on, and the university is helping us with that. And the UNE also has some really interesting research as well. We're working with them on.
It's amazing. And you talked a little bit, one of the areas of concern that we saw arise during the pandemic that existed before the pandemic was the issue of childcare.
Yeah.
And access to childcare. And I know that you've been a passionate advocate for that being more expansive in the state of Maine. Could you talk a little bit about your plans for increased childcare and how that's become a focus for your administration?
Sure, and I can back up for just a second and say that I married, I was in my 30s, I was district attorney for 3 counties when I met and married my husband, Stan, who was a widower with 5 girls, 5 daughters, ages 4 to 16 when we met. So I know a little bit about childcare. We both worked full-time during all those years, and then he passed away 7 years ago. But now I have 5 grandchildren, and the little ones, I know a little bit about childcare and the challenges of both working parents and having childcare. And so our commissions in the past saw this as a need, a great need. We know that during the pandemic, especially when the schools were closed to in-person learning, parents, especially mothers, working mothers, left the workforce because of a lack of childcare. And you can understand why people didn't want to work in that area. A lot of people didn't want to work when they were exposed to a virus potentially. So we are putting federal money, about $120 million into childcare right now, to expand the slots available, to expand the physical footprint, the facilities, and to continue paying stipends. We started last year to childcare workers and early childhood teachers. In Farmington alone, which has a low number of childcare facilities and slots compared to the population, Franklin and Washington counties do. We are doubling the slots at the University of Maine Farmington, where the early childhood program supports the student body at UMF to learn, to get degrees in early childhood, and supports the community with childcare and early childhood education facility. It's a great facility. We're renovating it now, and so childcare is extraordinarily important.
Yeah, especially for the new economy that you're building.
Yes.
To attract all
yes,
those new families.
Yes.
I wondered if you would mind if I switch tacks for a minute.
Okay.
And then we'll get to some of the audience questions. But my colleague Diane McGilvery created the Women Who Empower platform almost 10 years ago. 10-year anniversary will be next year, so we'll
Yes.
have you back. And it's a platform designed to elevate women, elevate their platforms, access and equity issues. And one thing I've noticed about you, Governor, in all your press conferences and speeches over the last couple of years, you always elevate the role of your team and your commissioners.
They're the best.
And speak about them. I'm
They
wondering
are the
if you could
best.
share with some of our students and our new leaders, what is your leadership philosophy and how have you created this team that's carried the state through the pandemic?
Oh, nice. When I first got elected, I got an email from Angus King, who had been governor here for 8 years. And he said, I have some advice for you. I said, oh, I bet you do. And he, you know, it was like a graduation speech, 8 things to remember. But one of the first ones was hire people, not because of their politics, but hire the best people you can, obviously. To me, that was obvious. And secondly, hire people who are not just going to tell you what they think you want to hear. That's a big one. I've seen other people in leadership positions in the private sector, the public sector, who just hire yes men, yes women. And that's not a good way to lead, to me. What he said was basically, look, if you and I agree on everything, maybe one of us isn't necessary. Hire people who are going to give you the best information. And by God, they argue with me every day, my staff and my cabinet. And that's a good thing. It's a healthy way to get the best information and experiences. Whether you end up agreeing or not, you've got people who are so damn smart. You know, you always want to try to hire smarter than you. You want those people around you to give you the best advice. And I am blessed with a cabinet of 15 people, 9 women, the most ever, and many of whom, a number of whom I didn't even know before I interviewed them for this particular department or the other. And I was just so impressed with everything they'd done. I said, yeah, you're the one. You're the one. And thank God. I don't know how we would have gotten through the pandemic without that team. And they were not easy discussions, whether it was education, economic development, healthcare. Nirav Shah, who, God bless him, he's got a candy bar named after him. I don't have a candy bar named Shaba. Some days I'm jealous, but most days I'm just thankful for every one of them.
He is quite popular. We're on a first name basis with him via
Sure.
the TV at my house.
Yeah,
I've never met him, but I talk to him quite frequently when he's giving updates. He's fantastic.
I have an autistic grandson who watched him faithfully every day. And all he can say is, Dr. Shah, Dr. Shah, Dr. Shah.
That's lovely.
Yeah.
So now a few of our questions from our guests, if you don't mind. This one is about energy costs in the state of Maine.
Yeah.
They're certainly top of mind for many of us, especially lately. What do you see as the best short-term solution and then maybe some of the longer-term ideas that you and the administration have?
Wow, I was just talking to some of my team today about that very thing, because it's obviously a priority. Energy costs, electricity rates that went up in January, following the increase in the standard rate, standard offer in November. And we are trying to form some legislation around that right now. Not much I can do about gas prices and oil prices nationally and internationally. I can't stop the Russians from invading Ukraine either. But our thinking right now is to get cash back into the pockets of Maine people as quickly as possible. Some of them will need that for gas, some of them will need it for heating oil. You know that Maine has one of the oldest housing stock, some of the oldest housing stock in the nation. We also have the most we are the most heating dependent for residential heating, oil dependent state in the nation. And so trying to wean people off of heating oil, trying to encourage electric vehicles, use of electric vehicles. We've actually got about 6,000 now in the state of Maine. That's low, but that's a lot higher than it was 3 years ago. Heat pumps, alternative heating systems for Maine residents and businesses. Get them off of heating oil. It's a big thing. It's a long-term thing. Efficiency Maine Trust is helping us get rebates out there for both heat pumps and electric vehicle leases and purchases, and standing up a lot more electric vehicle charging stations all over the state. Hey, look, we're seeing electric pickup trucks come in the market. I'm there. I'm good with that. So it's a long-term issue, but every day we talk about energy prices and electricity prices. What can we do? What more can we do to bring that down?
The next question from one of our guests is, this is great to see because I don't think we would have seen a question like this 10 years ago, but what will differentiate Maine as a future technology hub?
Whoa, nice. No interest in that in this room, none. Okay. I think, well, first of all, we welcome innovation. We welcome technology, entrepreneurship. I was blessed to be here for the Techstars Accelerator project a few months ago. That was so exciting. And whether we call ourselves a hub, I read that book, Jumpstarting America. Did you read that? And, you know, it talked about hubs elsewhere, hubs. We can be a hub. And I looked at several things dealing with quality of place and quality of life. And I think we have those factors, those characteristics. We have a low crime rate. We are a safe state, relatively speaking. We are a welcoming state. We need to be more connected in every way. Cell phone coverage, broadband, internet capacity, and all that. We do need that. Before the pandemic, I remember meeting with some business people, I think it's under 50 sort of business people. We had breakfast here in Portland, and many of them were doing business in Cambridge and Boston. And even back then, they were saying, we're exhausted with the rental prices in Boston and Cambridge. We're tired of this and that and the other thing, and the price of this and the price of that. I go, we're here for you. Just a little ways north, you know, Amtrak is there. You can go back and forth. So I think there's a lot of possibility for us to become a tech hub, not just in Portland, but in the surrounding areas and elsewhere as well.
Yeah, that Downeaster is fantastic. I take that all the time.
Taking advantage of that.
Yes. So the next question, which is again passionate, I think, to many Mainers, but how do we ensure that the economic benefits that you're planning reach all corners of the state?
Great question. Great question. We know that, and I've been traveling the state, I've been up to the county twice in the last few weeks, and I live in Franklin County, which is, you know, not seeing a huge economic boost right now. It's morphing from a manufacturing and farming, economic base to service based economy, and especially in Farmington. But we have to share the wealth. We want to encourage people to come to other areas of the state to experience life in other parts of the state outside of Cumberland County, for instance. But as much as I love it here, there's quality of life that is different elsewhere and just as attractive, I think, just as meaningful, and can be just as fulfilling. We may not have the opera on Saturday nights or as much theater and as many foodie restaurants, but I'll tell you, there's a new foodie restaurant just in Caribou, and some great places to be. And Lewiston, Auburn is a great place. Real estate is a lot more approachable, I would say, and you can make some good investments in these areas of the state other than Cumberland County, and be as happy. The schools are good. They're safe places to be. And you can always visit Portland if you want some more restaurants and theater. If you want to go to the opera in Bangor or Portland, it's always there for you.
And the Bangor International Airport is
Bangor
getting quite
International
busy, right? So it's very accessible daily
It is
flights
very
to
accessible.
DC and Baltimore. And
Yep.
so it'd be great to see the northern part of the state benefit from all the planning.
I love that. I'm a second district person myself, you know, live there, and very supportive of expanding economic growth to other counties in Maine.
Fantastic. I know you've probably seen this in your travels around the state, Governor, but there's so many job postings that are currently vacant. So how are you thinking about addressing the overall lack of people to fill the open jobs in the state that are currently available
Yeah.
at many of our industries?
Workforce is a major part of our Maine Jobs and Recovery Plan, which is being implemented right now, using a lot of the American Rescue Plan money, and soon to be the infrastructure money coming down the pike. Workforce, I mentioned the community colleges, 2 free years of tuition at the community colleges is going to encourage people to get that certificate they need to get a good job or upskill their existing credentials to be in the workforce in a better position to be in the workforce. We are encouraging everybody to go back to work. We've seen in Maine a higher retirement rate during the pandemic than other states because we're an older population, older average age population. But I think people are going to go back to work, depending a lot on inflation and how their 401ks and IRAs do, people are going to come back to work. And a lot of places are offering signing bonuses and stipends. More employers are offering health insurance than ever before, and better wages. You've seen the wages go up. So there are all kinds of reasons to go back to work. But it also ties into what I said before about childcare, workforce housing, and transportation. And those are the things we're concentrating on in our jobs and recovery plan to make it more amenable for people to get back to work. The things that they need to work. Childcare, if you don't have childcare, what are you going to do? So we're going to make that happen.
Great. One of the tensions that's probably more prevalent in southern Maine is the tension between the new Maine and the old Maine, and some of the concerns around gentrification, real estate, property values. In some ways, this is about extending the economic value to the rest of the state of Maine. But how are you thinking and running into some of the challenges around affordability, even in southern Maine?
Affordability of housing, for
Yeah.
instance. Well, we've done a couple things. I've been very concerned about the property taxes and the burden on property taxes, property tax payers, especially for people who've been in their homes for a number of years, and they're seeing people come in and buy homes next to them at a much higher sales price, eventually possibly driving up the property tax base and the property tax bills. So we've done a couple things. With the help of the legislature, we've implemented a property tax sort of circuit breaker program for people who've been in their homes a while to give it a tax benefit to people off the property tax bill. We have provided, for the first time in history, state funding at 55% of the cost of education, something the people voted on 17 years ago. We finally got that done this past year. That alone, because as you know, the school budget is a real driver of property taxes. With the state coming in and paying 55% of the cost of education, that's going to relieve the burden on property taxpayers across the state. And thirdly, revenue sharing. We passed a budget that includes 5% revenue sharing, back to 5%, as opposed to it was 3.5% before my predecessor had taken it down. That provides the money for municipal funding. So again, so as to relieve the burden on property taxpayers. Now, I can't do a whole lot about house prices. I think that's going to level off in the coming months and year or so, with interest rates going up, as Jerome Powell has said they're going to do month to month. That might level off. But look, I welcome new people here. I want them to live affordably. We're also proposed in the budget just last week another. There was $20 million for emergency housing. I don't want to put people up in motels if they're homeless or if they've just gotten here from another country and they have no other options. I just don't think families belong in motels. I want to provide some more meaningful emergency housing for that interim transition period until they can get work eligible, get into the workforce.
Be great. I know another initiative that's actually gotten a lot of attention lately that many of us are excited about is the whole initiative around broadband expansion. Do you mind talking a little bit about what that initiative is about and why that has become such a key focus for your administration?
Sure. Look, I am traveling across the state, whether as a candidate or as Attorney General or as governor now, you hear all over the place, my broadband sucks. I can't even do this. Okay, I got the picture. What are we going to do about it? You can say, well, have your town sign a contract with XYZ provider and that'll all go away. No. Okay. So what we did, with the help of my commissioner here and with the legislature, stood up a Maine Connectivity Authority. 7-member board. We immediately appointed them and confirmed them and swore them in with a new executive director, Andrew Boucher, maybe here. Nope, I don't think so. This was last summer. Got that all stirred up, and now he's in charge. The difference is, this is not window dressing. This is real work on broadband and making sure that every community in every region of the state can provide affordable broadband, not just help them with a contract with a particular provider, but make sure that a Maine family doesn't end up paying $100 or $200 a month for that plan, whatever speed it is. I have friends who practice tax law. They moved back to Maine to raise their children in Stonington. God bless them. And it's my favorite place in the world.
It's a beautiful place, just to
Beautiful,
clarify.
that was no broadband. I said to them, well, how do you get a file back to Delaware where your clients are based? If it's an important file, they tried satellite, they tried everything. He said, well, if it's a real important file, we'll fly it down, or UPS it, FedEx it, or something. What about if it's more urgent? Well, if it's real urgent, we'll drive up to Blue Hill and sit outside the Dunkin' Donuts and press send. Wow, this is not the way to do business. And we learned during the pandemic, school kids couldn't get their homework done, or they couldn't stay online, especially when mom or dad or somebody else in the family was also using the computer to work or access health care or some other vital thing. So this connectivity authority, it's not a regulatory board, it's not a adjudicatory board, it is a board that will have bonding authority, among other things, and an authority to funnel at least 120 million almost instantly of federal funds from broadband, thank you Senator King, Senator Collins, to help each community and each residence and business in Maine access affordable broadband. And I am entitled to say, because I heard it on good authority, that, and I said it in the State of the State speech, so it must be true. No, we promise and we commit that every person in Maine who wants to have high-speed internet will have it in less than 2 years from now. That's our commitment. We need it. We need it for healthcare, for education, for the economy, for workforce. We will be there. We all know this is the most dispersed population of any state in the country, and it's a rural population, and those funky peninsulas make it pretty hard for a lot of providers to lay fiber and what. But we're getting beyond that with this authority and these great people. We're gonna make it happen. We're problem solvers, and we're getting to the bottom of this.
Yes.
No more drop calls on 295.
Heather. So one last question for you. On a bright note, as you travel around Maine, I know you've been traveling a lot lately and meet with the people of our state. What are you most excited about?
Oh, just being out right now. Whoa, it's a long 2 years. I'm most excited about seeing the faces on children, being in school and being out, whether they're skiing on the ski slopes. We had a pretty good year there, or getting ready for baseball season, playing soccer. I'm excited about new Mainers. I'm excited about new people coming here and people coming back here, people that grew up here and are coming back because they see us as a welcoming and safe state, a place with 4 real defined seasons, good or bad, but enjoyable. And I'm excited to see new businesses. I'm excited to work with the businesses that helped get us through the pandemic, American Roots and LL Bean and the barbecue manufacturing plant in North Berwick, which helped us develop overnight, and the community colleges. We're coming up, I just gotta tell you, coming up on that election, November 2020 was like a horror show. What are we gonna do? People are gonna wanna vote. It's a crazy time. And I call the community colleges. I said, can you design us a ballot box so that people can vote without going into the building? And, overnight, they designed a ballot box, and then we quickly RFP'd it, and this barbecue manufacturing plant said, yeah, we got it. And they manufactured over 100 of those things. We got them all across the state of Maine. We had an 80% turnout, I think, in that election. 60-something% voted absentee safely because of our ingenuity, because of the community colleges and this plant and the people of Maine turning out in one of the most emotional and tough elections in recent decades and asserting their democratic right to vote. We got it done. That's what makes me happy.
Thank you, Governor Mills. Thank you
thank
for
you.
your years of service to our state of Maine. It's very much
We're not over.
appreciated. Yes. We know you have something important to start working on, which is your reelection. And
Oh, yeah.
as much as, we've enjoyed watching you, you've navigated the state through a tremendously difficult job. And
Thank you.
you have our gratitude for that. Before we conclude, I'd like to have our Chief Administrative Officer of the Roux join us, Chris Mallett, who has a few concluding remarks and somebody to introduce.
Can I take this?
You may.
Thanks. It's really difficult to follow these two women. So first, before I conclude with some remarks and invite a guest to join us, please join me again in thanking both Mary and Governor Mills for a wonderful service. Could I ask Dan Peabody Harrington to join us here beside the governor? And then could I also ask Margaret Angel and Mike Pilastri, members of the leadership team? Why don't you stand next to the governor, Dan? And Mike next to Dan, perhaps. Members of the leadership team here at the Roux Institute. I want to share a little bit of a story with all of you about the governor's commitment to all the things that she just shared. We're about 2.5 years old here at the Roux Institute. We have more than 100 team members. We have 450 students. About 25% of both groups are new Mainers joining the mission here to help catalyze some of the very themes that Mary and Governor Mills have been talking about this evening. And if you can remember back to the fall of 20, in the pandemic, before vaccines, what it felt like to live and work at that time, and what the governor herself was doing for all of us at that time, day in and day out, trying to keep us safe and make tough decisions and get people out to the ballot box, as she just mentioned. On a fall evening in the fall of 2020, Governor Mills joined our president, Aoun, to welcome the inaugural cohort of students to the Roux Institute. 75 learners. They joined in a Zoom meeting at 7 p.m. on a Tuesday night. And Governor Mills participated in most of that event. You called the students that evening trailblazers, and you talked about the commitment that they were making for their state. You challenged them to educate themselves, pursue their goals, and then have an impact to support the economic plan. And you welcomed them at a time when they had just made a commitment to be part of something that was new and emerging. We're building a university from scratch here in some ways. Well, Dan was one of those 75, and 50 others are going to graduate in 3 months
great.
on June 10th across the way here. So I want to ask Dan to share a little bit about his journey with you and what your support for us at the Roux Institute has meant to people like Dan and the other 450 learners and the team members here.
Go, Dan.
Does this sound all right? Yeah, okay, great. Thanks for having me here, Chris and Governor Mills. Like Chris said, I was on that Zoom that Tuesday evening, and I was also in the building across the way when you were present for the Techstars demo day.
Oh, yeah.
Because of my experience or because of my education here at the Roux Institute, I was able to actually co-op with Techstars and serve as their senior associate. So I planned a lot of that event actually, and had to last minute get a podium for you. So yeah.
Come without it, of course.
Right. And so, when I decided to become a student at the Roux Institute, it was because for the first time, there was a ability to get a global education here in Maine without leaving. And we've talked a lot tonight about the fact that, for the first time, Mainers are really starting to, or people are starting to come to Maine instead of leave it. And I'm a triplet, actually, and both my brother and sister have left the state to pursue, just different career opportunities and different lives. And it feels like the tide is turning.
It does.
And it's really exciting. It's really exciting to be a part of the Roux Institute and to, I came here expecting an education. And not only have I been able to co-op at Techstars, I've also been supported by the Roux Institute in Northeastern to work on a venture of my own where we're working on a company called Mallard Enterprises with the goal of developing and manufacturing amphibious aircraft in Brunswick, Maine.
Whoa.
And yeah, and so my my experience here has been just so much more than I could have ever imagined, and it's because of people like you who support this type of institution and just these initiatives here in Maine. So it means a lot to have you here.
Thanks, Dan. Good luck with you. Oh, there. Oh. There's a couple patents in here, I think. Oh, what's this? I don't know this. Oh, Code Breaker. Oh, yeah, I've heard a lot about that.
Another great woman.
Thank you. Yes. Jennifer
Dowda.
Dowda, Gene Editing and the Future of the Human Race. Oh, I'll finish this tonight. Thank you. After reading Jumpstarting America and Sam Quinones' 2 books, I'm ready for another nonfiction. So that's good. Thank you.
Well, we want to thank all of you for participating. I particularly want to thank Margaret Angel, our colleagues from Alumni Services, the governor's team, our campus experience and operations team who made this event possible for all of us this evening. Please join me in thanking them all. As Margaret mentioned, this is the first of a bi-weekly series. We're now open for business and the governor's on the road and we're welcoming the community to the Roux campus. If you're interested in taking a look at our future plans for the permanent campus, there's some easels in the hallway that'll give you a sense of the concepts that we have in mind. And Sam Reike from Ideals is here to also chat with any of you.